This is our league, and this is your league. From the 55-yard line on CFL America Radio and the Sports History Network.
Canadian football is a magic show, a century-old spectacle, grown men battling to cross a line drawn in the dirt. It is a game filled with heroes, great players and great teams, bringing championship pride to their faithful fans. The field is a battleground where skill and determination are the tools of the trade. It is a game that has grabbed a nation by the heart. An annual struggle becomes an epic battle as teams fight for the ultimate glory. The chance to hold the Grey Cup and become forever known as a champion. At the turn of the century, Vancouver was quickly leaving its colonial roots behind, and the British game of rugby was being replaced by a new game, Canadian football. In the 30s, Vancouver's Big Four League was home to the Marilomas, the UBC Thunderbirds, the Vancouver Athletic Club, and the North Shore Lions. The professional game grew in popularity across the nation, and in 1954, Vancouver's football fans had something to cheer about.
I was playing touch football one Saturday afternoon with all my buddies, and we were talking about this team that hadn't been named yet, and we were saying, it wouldn't be great to be the water boy. So I played hooky from school and went down and applied for the water boy's job.
For young Bobby Ackles, a part-time job became a lifetime passion, and the BC Lions became the 9th franchise in the Canadian League. The man charged with building a winner was football icon Anas Stoukas.
Stuke was one of the great characters of the league, great salesman for football. But, our teams were not very good because, of course, there wasn't a draft then. You had to start from scratch. But he did sign some good football players, Arnie Weinmeister, Laurie Nemes, some guys that had some pretty good ability, and, of course, found Norm Fieldgate, who was one of the all-time greats.
Stuke, he was my mentor, so I really appreciate what he did for me. But we got beat bad on a lot of games. We used to get a lot of cheers on first downs. And that was a great accomplishment those first 2 years.
Along with the new football team, Vancouver got a new stadium. Fans didn't mind if their team suffered growing pains. The Lions were the top ticket in town.
Empire Stadium was new at that time for the British Empire Games, and it was a palace, compared to most of the stadiums in the rest of Canada.
It was great, and the crowd was good, and of course with a cantilever roof on it that held the crowd, this noise came shot right out on the field, so you knew if you did things wrong, you knew if you did things right. The Empire Stadium actually turned out to be a quagmire because it rained every day. Almost every time we played, it rained. And what it did for me was that all the fast guys were the same speed as I was, because it was so hard to get around on the field that I didn't go up to their speed, they all come down to my speed.
While the Lions were a success at the box office, the team struggled. But in 1959, a whirlwind blew in from the University of Iowa, a dazzling running back named Willie Fleming.
I'd seen Canadian football play when I was a youngster at home in Detroit. And I knew that, here one thing you have was speed. And so I think it was suited for my talent. Vancouver was a real football town when I got here. People turned out to see us play ball, and that was good. I like that.
Fleming was an instant star. In his second year, he gained more than 1,000 yards. And to this day, his single-season rushing average of 9.7 yards stands as a professional football record.
I don't know if he ever did run full out. I mean, he didn't have to most of the time because his speed was such that nobody could catch him. He was the magic. I mean, people they went to the games to see Willie Fleming.
In 1961, a blockbuster trade with Calgary brought the Lions an arm to go with Fleming's legs. Quarterback Joe Kapp.
We needed a quarterback very badly, somebody who could be a leader. And of course, that's what Joe did perfectly. He was a great leader.
I think I got to the team in 1961 after the trade and immediately started the program of being with the players and getting to know them. And that was my job, to start the process. So we didn't win a lot of games, but we got better as a football team.
Joe was the leader. He was the leader of our ball club. Joe did most of the talking for us. He was outspoken, wasn't afraid of anything. He loved playing football, and I'll play with him anytime.
He would do anything to get the pass off down the field. I mean, more times he was being hung on by two defensive ends and a defensive tackle, and he would still get the ball down the field. Very competitive. I mean, he played more wounded than he did healthy.
In the early 60s, the Lions showed signs of improvement. With a solid base of Canadian players and some of the best American talent money could buy, things were looking up for Coach Dave Scrine.
At that time, we could compete with the salaries being paid in the U.S. I mean, we signed Tom Brown, who was the top choice in the United States.
Tom Brown was probably considered the best at his position coming out of college football that year. He was the first real big man that I saw that could do some of the things athletically that he could do.
Tom Brown was the leader of a marauding defense that earned their nickname, the Headhunters. And with the Joe and Willie show piling up the points, the Lions captured the West and took to the field in 1963 for their first Grey Cup appearance, facing the heavily favored Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Of course, it was our first time in the Grey Cup for BC Lions, and so you don't know what to expect, but it was quite a thrill. People were excited. They had seen a few Grey Cups in Vancouver, but not with the BC Lions in it.
With the hometown crowd behind them, Coach Scrine's Lions were holding their own. But in the second quarter, their Grey Cup dream turned to a nightmare when Ticat tough guy Angelo Mosca put the brakes on BC speedster Willie Fleming.
Willie had a habit of going wide and cutting back against the grain. And what happens is I dive right over the top of Willie, my knee catches the back of his head. Because Mosca hit Willie Fleming, it was a dirty hit. There was no penalty called on the play. And Willie got knocked out of the game.
I don't remember anything about it, to tell you the truth. I don't know until some of the players told me what had happened. But whether it was dirty or not, I don't know. I leave that to other people to do. All I know is I made him famous.
With a 21-10 victory, the Ticats proved they were the better team. But as Hamilton celebrated, the Lions looked ahead, determined that the Grey Cup would soon be theirs.
I think our players, to a man, rededicated themselves after that game in 1963, the loss to Hamilton. And we weren't done yet. We were not going to be denied.
In 1964, the Lions had their chance for revenge against Angelo Mosca and the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
We almost were certain we were going to win it. I mean, it was one of those things that there was a feeling among the team that we had come and done the route, paid our price. We were ready for it.
I was determined to show Angelo Mosca that, he couldn't keep me down or anything like that. I went right at him, and he had his chance to hit me, and face to face, and he couldn't touch me. I ran right past him, and he couldn't do nothing but grab dirt. So I got back at him that way.
The Lions were unstoppable. A botched field goal became a touchdown, and BC's running game tore through the Ticat defense. With a 34-24 victory, the Lions returned home heroes.
The city of Vancouver, on our return, just opened their arms to us. A marvelous thing and very special. There was love here for the BC Lions.
1967 brought Lions fans a new hero, a rugged Canadian receiver who'd spent 2 seasons with the NFL's Minnesota Vikings, Jim Young.
I got a nice big raise coming from the NFL to come to the CFL. The surprising thing was the caliber of play in the CFL in '67 was very close to what the caliber of play was in the NFL.
Jimmy could do everything. I mean, he had great speed, good hands, and he liked to hit people when they were looking the other way or when they were looking at him. I mean, he didn't really care, but he was a complete football player, really.
Jim Young's take-no-prisoners playing style earned him the nickname Dirty 30. But Young paid a price for his fearless approach to the game.
My second year with Minnesota, I got a shoulder separation that they didn't fix at the time, and that virtually I played one-handed the next 13 years of my career. So I did a lot of blocking with my left arm and my head. The worst thing came was the season that I dislocated my other shoulder, and they put a harness on it. So I had 2 shoulders that wouldn't work.
He wore a leather strap to his bicep, which was strapped around his chest, and 3 links of chain in between. And he used to knock the ball out of the air with one hand and catch it with both. And he played half a season like that.
In 1968, with 8 games remaining, every Lions quarterback was injured or limping. Former Edmonton great and now Lions assistant coach Jackie Parker was called into service as an emergency backup.
I didn't think I was going to have to play, but the first play we ran from the line of scrimmage, our quarterback got hurt, and so we didn't have anybody else there to even take the ball. So I went in and played the game.
He'd been out of football for 3 years. He was coaching. He wasn't in great condition, but you could see the magic was there as a quarterback.
Wayne Harris was playing middle linebacker, and he runs over and kind of knocks me down gently. He said, "What are you doing out here?" He said, "Are you nuts?" I said, "Yep, I'm nuts."
I never forget him after the game. He couldn't get into his car to go home. He was just so beat up.
In 1970, Empire Stadium was fitted with artificial turf. While it looked like an improvement, appearances can be deceiving.
What they did was they took out the sod, they paved it over, and then they put indoor-outdoor over pavement. At least that's what it looked like, and that's what it felt like.
Playing in Empire Stadium was like playing between parked cars. I'm snapping one day and I'm looking down at the turf, and there's paint. There's green paint on the field, and I scratch away at the green paint, and there's black asphalt. That's how they used to repair Empire Stadium. They used to spray the asphalt with green paint, and that's what we played on. It was a tough field.
The early 70s were turbulent times for the Lions, on and off the field. All-star Bill the Undertaker Baker was recruited to deliver law and order to Coach Eagle Key's squad.
He said, "You're no longer the Undertaker, you're the caretaker. This team has got a lot of problems." And boy, he was ever right. It was just the wildest bunch of guys in the world. Sure as shoot about, it wasn't many days later, we're out in the practice field, and the police showed up and arrested 2 or 3 of the players for something.
By 1975, Bobby Ackles had risen through the ranks from water boy to general manager of the BC Lions. The following year, he signed a local college kid named Passaglia, who would soon become a fan favorite known simply as Lou.
I thought those Lou's were actually booze at first, but it grew on you and the fans picked up on it, so I used that as a motivator every time I went out there to kick.
Luke Passaglia is probably the best kicker I've ever seen as a pure kicker. He'd been a high school quarterback, and then he'd been a college quarterback and receiver, and he kept his head into the game at all times.
In 1977, Vic Rapp was given the Lions coaching reins. His instinct for great talent and an intense competitive spirit helped launch an exciting new era for the BC Lions.
I think what Vic did very well was recruit players. He had a great eye for players from 77, 78, 79 on. We had the best players in the league.
Under Vic Rapp, quarterback Jerry Tagge and the Lions' great receiving corps became famous for their heart-stopping last-minute victories, earning them the nickname Jerry and the Cardiacs.
We weren't that good, but Jerry Tagge would always find a way to get the ball to Jim Young in the dying minutes of most football games, and we would win.
Facing Winnipeg in the 77 semifinal, a spectacular knockdown by Joe Forqueen got the Lions to the Western Final in Edmonton. But the jubilation was short-lived. Playing on an ice floe called Clark Stadium, the Stone Cold Lions never had a chance.
Remember, we went 2 days early to practice, to get acclimatized. How you get acclimatized to minus 17, I don't know. But I remember the opening kickoff went into the end zone, and we returned it to the 1 yard line. It wasn't a good place to start.
I had icicles hanging down from my mustache. Couldn't take my helmet off because if I did, you wouldn't get it back on again. If you ever tried to kick a block of cement, that's what the football felt for me.
We just never got in the game. It was so cold that it took me about half hour after the game finished to get my shoes off.
The one-sided contest led to a 38-1 embarrassment for the Lions. While the team improved under Coach Rapp, they never captured the West, a failure that eventually cost him his job. In '83, he was replaced by Don Matthews, the architect of the Edmonton defense. That season, playing in their new Dome Stadium, the Lions came within a single point of capturing the Grey Cup, and 2 years later, they were back in the big game.
That '85 Grey Cup team was a remarkable team. We had, as everyone remembers, Swerve Merv Fernandez, who was the MVP of the league that year. We had Roy DeWalt, who was just an outstanding person and an outstanding quarterback. And we swept into first place in the Western Division. And Merv Fernandez had hurt his leg. Merv did not play in the Western Final nor in the Grey Cup. And a young man named Ned Armour came out of nowhere and had 2 spectacular games.
But the Lions had more heroes on the field in Montreal's Olympic Stadium that day. As the Leos faced the Hamilton Tiger Cats, college quarterback turned kicker Louis Passaglia picked the perfect moment to use both legs.
All I could see was these 2 massive guys coming at me, and I don't know how I got away from them. I got to the outside, and the next thing you know, I'm running scared and looking for the first down marker, and the next play that Roy DeWalt threw a long touchdown pass to Ned Armour to break the game wide open.
The final score, 37-24. It was the Lions' turn to hoist Earl Grey's illustrious Silver Cup.
The ambition of all players is to win a championship. And I had waited so long, me and a number of other players, I just happened to be with that team longer than anybody else at the time, to actually carry that cup. I think I really understood what it took to actually walk off with that championship.
In 1986, Bobby Ackles left BC for the NFL. In 1988, newly acquired quarterback Matt Dunnigan took the team to within a single point of a Grey Cup championship. 2 years later, he too was gone. In 1990, the Lions' new owners were in need of leadership. They turned to a familiar face.
I couldn't resist the chance to be part of football and back in Vancouver, so we came back.
In 1990, Cap found the Lions and the CFL a superstar, a quarterback considered too small for the NFL, Doug Flutie.
I just was a great believer in his ability to, what he could do and would be perfect for the Canadian Football League, so we went after him.
I wanted to play football. I didn't want to sit around waiting for an opportunity. I wanted to be playing, and that was the #1 reason I went up to the CFL.
Doug Flutie was showing promise, and the following season, the Lions found themselves a brother act.
We needed to fill a spot at receiver, we really did. And when we had a chance to sign Darren, he deserved to be in the NFL. And then he comes to the BC Lions, and people are saying the only reason he's coming up is because he's my brother.
When I got to BC, that was one of the toughest times of my career, getting up there and having people think I was there because I was Doug's younger brother. But yet it motivated me also.
In 1992, Doug Flutie moved on to Calgary. 2 years later, the Western Final became Doug versus Darren as the Fluties met head-to-head. With the clock running down, BC quarterback Danny McManus and Darren Flutie dug deep and struck gold.
We had Darren Flutie doubled on 3rd down and 8, and guess who they throw the ball to? Darren Flutie, and we're being doubled, and he catches the ball.
If I had thrown that 9 out of 10 times, I don't know if he would have caught it. But this one time, he was able to go up in between 2 guys and bring the ball down.
With Calgary ahead by 5 points, the last play of the game was another McManus to Flutie miracle.
I didn't see who caught it, but I assumed it had to have been Darren. With his knack for making the big play at the big time, I just had a feeling, and sure enough, I see Darren with the ball in his hands and gave him a big hug.
You know, I'm just kind of in a haze that we just accomplished this thing as a football team, and I'm off to my celebration, and of course he's off to think about what could have been.
But there was an even bigger challenge waiting back home. The 1994 Grey Cup game was not merely BC versus Baltimore. It was Canada versus the USA.
As a team, the BC Lions, it pumped us up more than anything because not only were we playing for the Canadian Football League, we were playing for Canada, period.
To see the fans all waving Canadian flags, to see guys like Vic Stevenson and Rob Smith tearing up while the national anthem's being played, it's just an atmosphere that can never be duplicated again.
The international showdown was a seesaw battle as both teams fought hard for the Canadian football crown. With the score tied, the last play of the game belonged to Louis Passaglia as BC lined up for a 38-yard field goal attempt.
I don't think I actually watched the kick. I turned around and went over there by the fans because I knew, watching the fans, they were going to tell me the reaction of the kick.
It didn't look all that well from where I was standing at the beginning, but the ball kind of faded back in and went right through the middle of the uprights. And at that point, it was just chaos.
It wasn't the prettiest kick I've ever made, but like they say, you don't care how it goes through as long as it goes through.
And Lou wasn't through. 6 years later, in the last game of his 25th and final season, the kid who grew up in the shadow of Empire Stadium kicked the field goal that won the 2000 Grey Cup.
It's one of the kicks that I'll never forget, but that game stands out as probably one of the most emotional games I've ever been through, but what a great ending.
Through pride and perseverance, the Lions have given British Columbia a rich tradition of football, and the promise to deliver more CFL excitement continues.
It's a fun game to play, and it's a fun game to coach, and it's a fun game to watch. It's a great game for the fans.